Good morning, Chicago. What is up? Welcome to the Bears Huddle podcast. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode here on YouTube. Obviously, please smash that sub, ring that notification bell, and come and join with the channel as we grow to perform our Chicago Bears community over here in the UK, guys. And I want as many members from the US, from Australia, from New Zealand, from Asia, from all across the world to come and join this Bears community. Right, guys, we're going to talk the draft. I mean, look, we are fast approaching the NFL draft. It is Thursday. It is pretty much 3 days away now from actually finding out who the Bears will take with that 10th pick, if it is that they do stay at the 10th pick. Now, in yesterday evening's video, we talked a little bit about, obviously, you know, the dilemma, the so many rumors, counter rumors, etc. In this video, I want to look at, you know, what I feel is the best strategy for the Bears going forward. Now, I hear all the talk about Ashton Jeanty, about Tyler Warren, for example, Colston Loveland, Amarian Hampton. They're the sort of talk, you know, people think that, yeah, they'll take them at the 10th position. There's talk, obviously, about going for a skill position at the 10th position, 10th pick. I personally feel that we still need to build the trenches. Look, I'm not saying that we're going to win the Super Bowl this coming NFL season. I'm not saying that for 1 minute. But what I am saying is, if you look at the Eagles, you look at the teams that do well, that go to the playoffs, the teams that succeed in the playoffs, they have got it right in the trenches. I mean, look, we are talking Eagles. Eagles are obviously the reigning Super Bowl champions, but the one thing that stands the Eagles apart from all the teams in the NFL is their trenches, is their D-line, is their O-line. You know, yes, Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback, but he's not, I would say, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. He's certainly not up there with the likes of Patrick Mahomes, of Josh Allen, for example. You know, he's certainly not in their class, but he has got an absolutely solid as a rock offensive line in front of him that protects him and gives him time to look, to pass, to hit his weapons, in the outfield, or to run the rock through Saquon Barkley. Now, if you look at their defense, their defensive line, their edge rushers absolutely stomped the hell out of Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl. And, you know, throughout the season, that's what they did. They stomped the hell out of the opposition. So for me, you've got to look at building those trenches. You know, I still think no matter, yes, Brian Poles has done a fantastic job in the offseason of building a good offensive line. I think we're 4/5 of the way there on the offensive line. I still have got major doubts about Braxton Jones. I think obviously Joe Tooney, Jonah Jackson, Dolman. I think Dolman is a class center. He's one of the best centers in the NFL. And obviously Darnell Wright, who I think could play right tackle. I think you could also shift him to left tackle. I think that's something he could definitely learn. I think we're 4/5 of the way there. I think on the D-line, we've got power there on the D-line. The edge rushers, we've got Montez Sweat. Obviously, they've got Dio. You know, I still think there is a little bit of weakness there. Perhaps someone to come in and be that third piece on that edge. I mean, there's talk of Booker or Dexter moving there, but I just think that we could do with adding someone else to that edge rusher position. You know, you look at the D-line. We've added Grady Jarrett, obviously, who is a top pass rusher. A great defensive lineman from the Atlanta Falcons, but he's the wrong side of 30. So I think we do need to perhaps invest in some depth there to get that, so that, you know, when Jarrett is coming towards the end of his career, there is people to come in there and spell him and have equal sort of talent, or at least similar sort of talent. Andrew Billings is another one, Gervon Dexter, Austin Booker. There's talent there, Chris Williams, but I still think there is a need for more depth on that D-line. Like I said, in the offensive line, I think we're 4/5 of the way there. Now, pictured on the screen, you can see 4 top options, I believe, in this draft, and they would be decent picks at 10. Armand Membu, who I think is the best tackle in this draft. I'd rate him a hell of a lot higher than Kelvin Banks. Probably similar to sort of Will Campbell, the LSU tackle that you can see there, number 66. Kenneth Grant, who is a defensive tackle out of Michigan, teammate of Mason Graham. I mean, look, I'd love Mason Graham to be a Bear, but Mason Graham will be gone at pick 4 or pick 5. Mason Graham obviously is the talent in this draft, but Kenneth Grant is a guy who could be available in the second round. Now, if that's the case, you can go and get an edge rusher or an O-line in the first round, build that as part of the team up, and then go and get your defensive lineman in the second round. You know, I think that is something that is eminently possible. You know, could you imagine if we came out of the first round with, say, someone like Armand Membu, who can play left tackle, who can play right tackle? You could then shift Darnell Wright to left tackle, play on Membu as the right tackle. I think then you've got an offensive line that, if you then extend, obviously, Tooney, you've got a great offensive line for at least 2 to 3 seasons there. Add into that, perhaps then getting Kenneth Grant in the second round. You've got a player there to add to that defensive line depth, and you're building that up. Go for an edge rusher perhaps in the third, someone like a Landon Jackson, for example, and you've got a really good set of trenches there, a really good group of players both on the O-line and the D-line, and that's what you've got to build. I think for me, it's got to be about trench warfare. Build the O-line, finish it off, give Caleb a chance to thrive, build the D-line, build the edge rushers, put the opposition quarterback under a hell of a lot of pressure, get back to the monsters of Midway, and demolish the opposition through our defense. Now, let's have a little look at these categories coming into the NFL draft. Now, we're going to look at offensive line and defensive and the edge rushers in this slide. We're also going to look here at the offensive lineman. But let's start off with looking at the defensive lineman there. I think I said offensive lineman. Sorry, I meant defensive lineman. So, you look at those. Look, realistically, Mason Graham is going to go at 4 or 5. I think there is absolutely zero chance that Mason Graham falls to the Bears at 10. I'd love it if he did. If he's there at 10, you run to the podium, you draft him, and you've got yourself one of the best defensive tackles in this class. But this defensive tackle class is deep. It is so deep. And I think that then therefore moves that defensive line down as a priority. You can probably get someone in the second round who is going to be just as good as what you would get in the first, at that sort of mid to late round first, which most of the rest of these D linemen are. Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, they're guys who are probably going to go late first. I do think Derek Harmon will go before Kenneth Grant. Walter Nolan is someone I've seen linked with a number of teams in the 20s. I think he's a very big, powerful defensive lineman. But, certainly if he slipped out of the first and he's there in the second round when the Bears come to pick, that's a no-brainer. You would take someone like a Walter Nolan. Kenneth Grant, I think, is the most likely to fall out of that defensive line class. If you look at him, he is the player who you could probably get in that second round. He is the player who you could certainly get, and he would certainly add quality to your team. Teammate, like I said, of Mason Graham. If he was there at 39, you'd absolutely snap your hand off to get him. TJ Sanders, another good second round guy. Tyleik Williams, another good second round guy. Alfred Collins, Omar Norman Lott. I've seen Alfred Collins go late second. I've seen Omar Norman Lott go in the third in some of these mock drafts. And I know they're just mock drafts, and you can't put 100% stall in them, but these are guys that are absolute quality, and there is depth there to be taken, and that kind of moves that defensive line down the list of priorities a little bit. And I'm sure that Ryan Poles will be looking at that and thinking, look, if we can't get Mason Graham because he doesn't fall, then we look in the second round. We can certainly pick up a good second round defensive lineman, like I said, a Kenneth Grant, a TJ Sanders, a Tyleik Williams. These are guys who are, real good players. Tyleik Williams is an absolute beast. He is an absolute game wrecker in that interior. So that is certainly a decent option for the Bears on the interior defensive line. And like I said, there is good options there. Very, very good options. Edge rushers. Now look, we all know, without a shadow of a doubt, Abdul Carter will be gone in the top 4. He will go. If he doesn't go at 2 to the Browns, I think we all know the Titans will take Cam Ward with the first pick. Abdul Carter could go to the Browns at 2. Whether they want Carter on one end, Garrett on the other, I don't know. Whether they see they've got a whole list of other priorities and think Travis Hunter is a better option, could well be. Who knows what the island of misfit toys will do. Giants, they could go quarterback with Shedeur Sanders, or they could go with Abdul Carter. If Carter falls to 4, you expect to see the New England Patriots snap him up. So he's not going to be there at 10. But there are going to be people there at 10 from that edge rusher class. Now, obviously, we've got Montez Sweat, we've got Dio. Yes, I think we do need to add that third piece, that rotation piece through to spell these guys, to give us more threat off the edge. Now, for me, Shamar Stewart would be an absolute bust. I really hope that Ryan Poles is not looking at Shamar Stewart. He's just someone who I do not rate in the slightest as a production guy. Athletic freak, yes. Elite level freak in terms of his athletics, yes, absolutely. Fast, strong, got all those things, but his production is absolutely shocking. And as I've said on multiple videos, if this guy cannot do it at college level, what makes people think he's going to do it at the NFL level, where the competition is tougher? I just don't see it personally. Like I've said on numerous occasions, if the 10th pick is Shamar Stewart, I'm going to be absolutely devastated. Michael Williams out of Georgia. I think he is an excellent prospect, good production, quality player. Someone who could really come in and add to this Bears defense, and I think certainly could be that third piece in the edge rusher room. A top player, again, a very top player. He's quick, he's fast, he's strong. He's rated very highly. He's been linked with a number of different NFL teams. A lot of teams apparently looking at him. You look at his production last season with the Georgia Bulldogs. He had 15 solo tackles, 6 assisted tackles, 21 combined, 9 tackles for a loss, 5 sacks, which is better than the 1.5 that Shamar Stewart had. The guy who I've got a real draft crush on is James Pierce. This guy is absolute lightning fast. Ran I think it's a 4.4940 or something like that in the combine. But this is a game wrecker. This is a guy who can make huge differences in the game. Great production at college level. Like I said, he's a real speed rusher. He can really get into the backfield at pace, can really cause trouble for the quarterback. I do believe that this is a good guy that could make a huge difference. And if he was the pick at 10, I certainly wouldn't be unhappy with that. It was a 4.47 for he's 6'5", 245 pounds, 7.5 sacks last season, 1 forced fumble, 38 tackles, 23 solo tackles. So good production from Pierce in his last year. Mike Green is another one, very good edge rusher. The only sort of drawback with Mike Green is there are slight questions over his character, a few charges against him in his time at college. However, if it is an edge rusher, if the Bears were to say go for Will Campbell on Armand Membu at 10, and then were to look later in the second round, Princely Amalian, Landon Jackson, Nick Scurton should all be available, with the 39th or the 41st pick. So automatically there, you've got somebody who can come in and be that third piece. And I think Princely Amalian, I think that Landon Jackson, I think that Nick Scurton are all players that could really add to this Bears defense. So that's the defensive side of the ball. And as you can see, there is real strength in depth. There is real options there. So that, if the Bears do want to go with an offensive lineman at 10, they can pick up a defensive lineman and an edge rusher in the second round. If the guys are still there, obviously that's the big thing. But, I wouldn't be upset if we say, like I said, took, say, Armand Membu or Will Campbell at 10, and then in the second round took Kenneth Grant, and then, say, took a Princely Amalian or a Landon Jackson with that 41st pick. I think that would be, quality. You'd have 3 very, very good trench warfare players there to come in and really build these trenches. Looking at the offensive line now, DraftBuzz have got Kelvin Banks top of the list. I've seen such varied stuff on Kelvin Banks. I've seen some Bears fans loving Kelvin Banks, some Bears fans not liking Kelvin Banks Jr. Personally, don't like the guy. I think his bull rush he's very questionable on the bull rush. He's got sat down on his ass a number of times when someone has bull rushed him. His hand placement issues. I think he has a lot of issues, and I think it's touch and go whether they are coachable, whether you can overcome those things. Yes, there is a potential that you could overcome him. He does have talent, but for me, he is the 4th tackle in this draft. I would put Membu, Campbell, Simmons all higher than Kelvin Banks. I am not a fan of Kelvin Banks. Again, I think if it comes out and the 10th pick in the draft is Kelvin Banks for the Bears, I am, again, going to be pretty devastated with that. Will Campbell and Armand Membu, I think, are the best 2 tackles in this draft. Much of a muchness. Either of those there at 10, you snap their hands off, you get to that podium, you read out their names. They are the guys you want. Campbell and Membu, I think, could come in, plug and play starters from day one. Replace Braxton Jones, obviously, who's going to miss a lot of training camp, who has an inconsistency level of performance. And you've got there, I think, then, if you've got someone like Membu, you've got Membu, Tooney, Dalman, Jackson and Wright. You've got a top level offensive line that is there and could be a major offensive line for years to come. Josh Simmons, a potential. I think Josh Simmons would have been the best tackle in this draft had he not had that injury. And I think the issue around Josh Simmons is very much how does he come back from that injury? How does he rebuild his career, and does he ever get back to being the player he once was? And I think there's always that issue when you have a major injury like Josh Simmons has had, that you never ever get back to being the level that you were. You don't get back to that level of talent. You were always worried about that injury, that spot, and you don't ever get back to the same level. And that is the big concern over Josh Simmons. Gray Zabel and Josh Connolly, I think they're second round guys. Again, if the Bears were say to go Michael Williams at 10 or James Pearce at 10, and then to take Josh Connolly with pick 39 or pick 41, I think that again would be a good pickup for the Bears. You've got some good offensive linemen there, and I think as much as there is not, I don't think in this draft the level of blue chip player. There is not, I don't think, those top generational players coming out of college this year. You have obviously the Abdul Carters, the Travis Hunters of this world, Mason Grahams. I mean, I wouldn't even put Cam Ward in there. I think Cam Ward is a good quarterback. I don't think he is a generational quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. But, there is certainly strength in depth. And that's the biggest thing at all these key positions. And as I said, I really feel that, as much as it's nice to have that skilled player, the Tyler Warren, the Ashton Jeanty, the Amarian Hampton, the Colston Loveland, I still feel that as a team, we need to build the trenches. We need to be tough, in your face, physical, hard. And that's what it is in the NFC North. That's the sort of ball you have in the NFC North. And I think finish the offensive line, finish the defensive line and the edge rushers, put those two areas of the game in good position, and then move on and look at perhaps taking someone like a Caleb Gordon or someone else later on, Cam Scatterbo, what's the guy out of Mafsa, is it the other guy, the running back as well? There's him. The tight ends, you've got Harold Fannin Jr., you've got Arroyo, you've got a few players who you could take later on in the draft at the tight end and running back position. But I do really feel that get those trenches right first should be the way the Bears go in the 2025 NFL draft in Green Bay. Guys, it is so close now. We can even touch it and smell it. Let's face it, who'd want to smell Green Bay? Horrible place. Let me know your thoughts on the draft. Who would you take at 10? Do you think it's time to build the trenches first? Thank you for watching the Bears Huddle podcast. Guys, on the way out, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And remember always, let's bear down, guys. See you later, Chicago.